Abba Ben Ami stated that Africa was a powerful land whose people had tremendous faith in Yah prior to 1555. For it was Black African brothers, Moses, in contemporary language, they'll say Jesus, but we know his name is Yeshua, and Muhammad, who set the tone for the basis of the three major religions of the world today, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The truth concerning this matter cannot be found in the history and religious books of Europe or America. These Black men's intentions were to save first their people, and afterward they would evince a holy people unto the world, in accordance with the will of Yah and prophecy. Their attempt to establish a righteous nation coincides with the plan of Yah. So in each of these instances, what we find is a basic messianic formula or basic redemptive formula, a strategy, in terms of how we're going to positively impact the world. Contrary to popular belief, Yeshua did have a universal outlook, but his work was primarily nationalistic. Moses did in fact have a universal outlook. The Most High's vision is always universal, but the strategy, like the plan of implementing the vision, it has to begin somewhere with somebody, So just like in the days of Noah, for example, the plan was redemption of humanity, but it involved Noah and his family on a boat, and so the plan in the times of Moshe was to reveal principles of divine law to the world and create a righteous nation that can inspire the people, but it needed a population to work through. Likewise, in the days of Yeshua, although undoubtedly universal vision of redemption, of a better world, of truth and restoration for the downtrodden Adamic family, absolutely. But he started off by saying, go not the way of the Gentiles, but go to the lost sheep. So he was looking at us very specific people, and the objective was and is to lift up a people who could then represent the teachings in application. And it was the same thing in the days of the Prophet Muhammad, by seeking to revive the spiritual consciousness of the Ishmaelite family and inspire them to become the light of the world, recognizing the fact that the followers of Yeshua had become swallowed up by Hellenism, and created the wayward religion of Christianity, and that the Hebrew population had fallen away under the Israelites, away from the principles of Moses. They violated the Torah. There was a void that needed to be filled that the Prophet Muhammad worked to help fill via his divine instructions. And so this principle of establishing a righteous nation, it actually coincides with the plan of Yah that you find all throughout the scriptures. And it's that same principle that Abba Ben Ami built the kingdom of Yah upon, with our exodus out of America and our reestablishment in the Holy Land. Let's go to the next page. And the reason why this idea is so important is because even today, higher ideals and a better way of life cannot be properly defined unless one has a contrasting, flourishing manifestation of the progress achieved outside of the confines of this society, a society that's supposedly based on higher ideals. It's the same with moral values and principles. And so what I was explaining here is that you need to create an example. It's not enough to complain about the pre-existing models, the pre-existing systems, the pre-existing standards of the world. It's not enough to say they're unethical. They ain't right. The leaders of the world aren't doing things correctly. It's like, okay, we know that. Is that old saying that says, don't curse the darkness, light a candle. So all the way ever since Genesis, Yah's position in the face of great darkness has always been, let there be light. It wasn't, let me sit around and complain about the darkness. When faced with disorder and chaos and degeneracy, it's always solution oriented. And then the solution, if we're dealing now, not just with individual moral failings, but the failings of people, of societies, of institutions, of governments, then it needs to be a people, a society, institution, government that can lift up a positive alternative, a positive example. And so Abba said, one cannot speak authoritatively on the issue of establishing a nation founded upon the principles of the laws of Yah and emphasizing the intrinsic moral values and obligations, unless you have an example of a people redeemed, progressively expanding, and excelling through the adherence to the laws and statutes of Yah, who is a spiritual ruler of that nation. That's what the whole idea of the kingdom of Yah is. You go into the scriptures, you find references, this idea of the kingdom of Yah, the kingdom of God, as they say. What that implies is that, it's a social system, but the spiritual leader of the society is the Most High, which is very different, because it's very different from the idea of just that this particular man over here is the king, because physical kings come and go. Physical leaders come and go, princes come and go, rulers come and go. But the eternal spirit of the Most High has to be the guiding force that inspires all of the kings, all of the rulers, all of the princes, etc. Right? And so when the nation is subordinate to the principles of the Most High and seeking to embody that light through their social system and institution, you create a righteous example or alternative to the wicked ways of the world. Yeah. And this plan began with Moses bringing the children of Israel out of Egypt to make them a holy nation, which would be a light unto the Gentiles. The objective was to establish a nation governed by the laws of Yah, that the world would see the benefits of righteous living. The Gentile adherents to ancient Christianity understood that the same opportunity existed for them, that through the adherence to the teachings of Yeshua, they could establish that nation which would spiritually be Israel and thus become the light of the world. It was that same spirit that prompted Muhammad to inspire the Ishmaelites to be that chosen people. All these men, Moses, Yeshua, and Muhammad, knew what had to be done, that there had to be a standard of godliness to be a light unto the nations. Can you scroll down a little bit, Zakai? Muhammad and the early Gentile Christians knew that the spiritual Magna Carta had passed from the hands of ancient Israel, and that they were given a historical season to assume the role of the chosen people of God. And so in the world of scholarship and history, this is sometimes referred to as supersessionism. Supersessionism, the idea that the original standard, the original covenant, the original responsibility that was given to the nation of Israel was abandoned by the nation of Israel, right? When they violated the Torah, when they started pursuing after other gods, when they started adopting unrighteous and unhealthy and wicked lifestyles, they were basically telling the Creator, we don't want to represent you. We want to represent Baal. We want to represent Zeus. We want to represent somebody else, you know, because our morals don't want to align with your principles. And so then that created a void. So when you look at what in the early stages of the development of Yeshua's Messianic movement, he was working to empower that population of people to remember their ancestral calling, to remember their true purpose, because Yah's covenant with the children of Israel is that he would never forget. It's just that the people may forget, but that Yah's covenant with the children of Israel would be eternal. Yeah. But if the people forget and they decide not to become that divine example, then it creates a void, a hole, a gap that needs to get filled. And so the early Gentile adherents to Christianity utilized that concept to their strategic advantage. And they projected it onto themselves and identified themselves as the new Israel. When you study the history of Christianity, fundamentally, that's what they were doing. They were saying, we are the new Israel. This is why the bishop claimed that the Hebrew scriptures, the Hebrew canon, the sacred writings, he declared them to be the Old Testament. And now the Old Testament was going to be replaced by a New Testament. And the Old Testament was fulfilled because that's dealing with the ancient past. And now it's all about this New Testament in the days of Yeshua. And this was a diversionary trick away from the true message of Yeshua, away from the true messianic message of the Holy Messiah, whose objective, again, was to raise up the lost sheep of the house of Israel.